Okay. I think. Yes, indeed. We're live. Hey guys, I'm Luke. Welcome to this live stream, live English lesson. Good to have you here. I will be your teacher for this live English lesson. And so I hope we can cover a lot of stuff. I hope you ask lots of good questions. I'm going to be talking about some tips and tricks for improving your English faster or learning languages in general faster. And I'm also going to be answering your questions. So if you have questions about culture, about grammar, about pronunciation, about words, about phrases, about whatever it may be, I will do my best to answer those questions. So thanks, guys, for joining. I really appreciate it. If at the beginning, if you guys wouldn't mind, it would be awesome if you could hit the like button. That would be deeply and sincerely appreciated. Takes half a second, but it helps out the channel a lot. Also, if you're really interested in seeing future videos, you can hit subscribe and check out my full English courses in the links or link in the description. Okay? Check that out. Those are on sale. All right, we have Naba here. Karina's here. Hello, hello. It's moi is here as well. And Charmaine. Herboda, or Herboda. Not sure which one that would be. All right. Well, let's just wait a few minutes, guys. If you have initial questions, I'm happy to answer them. Hey, what do you know? Lolly Lolly's here. Oh, yeah. Abner is here. Hello there. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome. I do have some cool stuff planned today. I'm excited to share it. But I also want to make sure you guys have some questions ready to ask, some good questions. Last live stream, we had some awesome questions. Mohammed, greetings. Hello, hello. All right. We'll just wait a few more minutes while more of you guys come in so that people aren't missing stuff. Then we'll get started. It's Moi says, for borrowed foreign words, do you pronounce in the original language or just your best guess? It's a really excellent question. Love that one. Nellie Grace is here. Hey. That's rare. Great. Wait a second. Is this your first time? No, second time, right? First or second. Diego, hey there, Diego. Great to catch you. Not sure what you mean by that. Mohammed. I'm starting to watch Love Victor. I'm sad because I still get caught with subtitles even in English. Is it a good show? Love Victor. Have not heard of that one. That's something I'll have to check out. I don't know why I haven't heard of it. Yeah, I mean, don't get discouraged. Don't let yourself get too sad about it. It's just part of the learning process. Do your best. Look up idioms when you can. Look up words when you can. And otherwise, just try to get a feeling for it, you know? Zeno. Hello, Zeno. Welcome. Welcome. Well, I got a good question here. I might as well just answer this one because it's a good one from It's Moi. And then we'll get started with my topic. I have a topic prepared as well. Yes, Nellie Grace, you do always come late. It's not your first time, though. Okay, first, I feel like you haven't come to many. You're loving it. It's from Hulu. Okay. I canceled my Hulu subscription because I thought they were going to get Rick and Morty because they have the old seasons of Rick and Morty, but they didn't, so I canceled it. Gabe's 3D Videos says, is English different than Spanish? He misspelled Spanish as Spanx. No, Spanish and English are exactly the same. In fact, all languages are exactly the same all the time. There are no differences. That's a fun fact. But to directly contradict that fun fact, I now want to talk about It's Moi's question because that's a good one. We'll talk about that. This is a question. This is a question that requires a lot of deep thinking, especially to try to understand what the heck Spanx is. Spanx. That was my second minor in university. Philosophy, European history, and Spanx. No, Abner, I'm unfortunately not capable of being serious all the time, so that's the reason I said that. It's not true, of course. Okay, so let me pop up this question here from, it looks like it's Moz on Periscope. Must be pretty lonely. You must be the only person. This is the only question I've seen from Periscope before. You must feel lonely over there. Come join us on YouTube or Facebook where all the action is happening. That's where things are happening. Now, you know what? Stay on Periscope. Then yeah. For selfish reasons, I would like you to stay on Periscope. Do whatever you want to do. I'm not sure. Grandma. English sounds way too different than Portuguese. My native language. I think you mean native language. Geez, you went too convincent. What I can say about Portuguese, depending on where you live, either that would be either Brazil or Portugal, right? It seems like it's close enough so that you could learn other European languages like Romanian, French, Italian, and Spanish without too much difficulty, right? But that maybe because of the grammatical structure of English and the pronunciation and the fact that the spelling's all weird in English, it may be a little harder for you to learn English. If I'm wrong about that, then correct me. But I would imagine you could pick up the related Romance languages pretty easily. Brazilian, there we go. Okay. Now, It's Moi. I'm going to answer this one because this is a good one. It's Moi says, for borrowed foreign words, do you pronounce in the original language or just best guess? Now, this is a great question because it's a global society that we have, right? And we hear words all the time from other countries that we may not know how to say. So what do you do when you hear that? Do you say it how you think you should say it, just sort of guess? Or do you try to figure out how do they say it? How do local people say it? And this actually gets a little bit complicated depending on where you're from. And I'll give you a quick example. So, Japanese. Japanese developed on its own and then borrowed later on, and as I understand it, they developed a lot of the written language called kanji of Japanese from China. So it's not that the language itself originated from China, but that they borrowed that for writing, and it was housewives in Japan who began to borrow it and use it for the writing system, part of the writing system, right? I believe that was when they started using kanji. I could be wrong about that. I'm not an expert on Japanese. But the point there is, because the characters are shared between China and Japan, many people in China will not know the Japanese pronunciation of, for example, a city name. And so, while maybe I would say, oh, that city is Tokyo, or that's Fukuoka, or that's Nagoya, or whatever it happens to be, I would say it not too far from the way that it's pronounced in Japan, with maybe my American accent added to it. Someone from China would say something completely different based on the Chinese pronunciation of those Chinese characters, because it's originally from Chinese. So that gets really confusing, right? So, but we don't need to talk about that really, because what we're talking about is English. Now, first we have to sort of define what a borrowed word is, because English is something like 10 to 15% Nordic. It's basically a Germanic language, which is related to German, but not German. German and English are cousins. English has a major influence from Old French because the Norman invasion that happened in the, 1066? Is that right? Is that when it happened? The Norman invasion came over, and then that brought a bunch of French over to the English language. So when we say things like chandelier and ballet and a bunch of other words, including common everyday items like beef, which comes from French, we have these borrowed words that become the language. So first, how do you define it? Now, I think the point of It's Moi's question is to say modern borrowed words. So the old French words get they get grandfathered into it, and we say, oh, okay, beef is an English word. It's not a French word. Beef is an English word. All right, I will give you that, because if we say that words like beef are actually French words and that's a borrowed word, then we have to go all the way back to the history, and it becomes this project, and we have to start writing papers about this. We have to start writing philology papers, and it gets very complicated. So let's talk about what I think you're talking about, which is more modern English words, or modern words rather, that are borrowed. Now, I mentioned the example of Japan. So we don't have anything between, let's say, the United States and Japan that would confuse it, other than our own dialect and the way that we move our mouths. And so when I say something like anime, right, I'm talking about a particular thing, a cartoon, an animated TV show or series from Japan, and that's what it means in Japan too. And I'm using something that comes from the Japanese pronunciation and is probably pretty close, because I have no reason not to do that, right? But then there are other things, because the sounds are a little harder in the original language, where it does get changed a little bit. And I'll give you a simple example. In English, we say, instead of the Chinese pronunciation, which is gongfu, gong is not a sound that we have in English, so we say kung fu. Kung fu. Another simple example of a borrowed word from Chinese would be something like tofu, right? We all know tofu. Now, I think it's originally from China, but you guys can check me on that. But let's say it is, okay? Now, do people in China say tofu? No, they say tofu, right? Okay, it's a different pronunciation. So we have sort of Englishized the pronunciation of that, and that becomes the standard pronunciation in America of that. And you can't say that it's wrong, because that's just how Americans say it. So you have these sort of two types, where some of them, like Toyota, are just slight American accents of the original thing. And some of them are completely changed, or at least with letters changed, from the original, because we don't have that sound, right? We don't have that sound that's in Kung Fu. We don't have that, so we say Kung Fu in a very American way. And that's generally how it works. I use those examples because that's what comes to mind for me, but there are tons of words that come from various languages, right? And let's say one from Europe. Okay, so kindergarten is a German word. Now, do German people say exactly in the same way that Americans do kindergarten? No, and I'm not going to try it because my German is not good, but it's definitely something like kindergarten. It's like a garten sound, I think. I could be wrong, so correct me. But it's more like that than garden. Sometimes we say garden, sometimes we say garden, right? So it's definitely different in the way that we say it. Now, can we say, that is how you say it? No, we can say, that's how Americans say it. And then you can say, well, it's been in the language so long, it's not really a borrowed word. Again, that line is very fuzzy. Okay, so my suggestion would be to decide who you're going to communicate with on a daily basis and learn that pronunciation. If you're mostly going to be communicating with native English speakers and English is what you're trying to improve, I would recommend just learning the way that British people or Americans or Australians or Canadians say these words, even if those words are not the original way that those are pronounced, because that's not how language works. We don't whip out our books and say, oh, well, let me check the pronunciation of that one. No, Americans say it this way. British people say it that way. And that's not only true for borrowed words, but for words that we consider to be in the language. Right? We always disagree with people in England about how to say aluminum. We say aluminum in America, they say aluminium. Aluminium, aluminum, and we fight each other. We throw eggs at each other over this debate, right? But the reality is they say aluminium and we say aluminum, and that's just it. Language is this slowly flowing, evolutionary, naturalistic, artistic type thing that changes constantly from generation to generation. So the question that you should ask here is, what do you want to learn? Who are you going to be communicating with most? And it might be an interesting idea to try to learn both pronunciations. I find joy in learning both pronunciations. I like to know that Kung Fu is said in America and Gong Fu is said in China. I like to know that. It's interesting to me, right? And the Japanese example I gave, Japanese has fewer phonemes than English. Phonemes are the basic sounds in words in a language. I think English has 44. Japanese has fewer. So they cannot say things that we say in English. But they have versions of those words for Japan, versions of English words. So if you're going to be mostly communicating with Japanese speakers, you're going to have to learn words like interneto, which means internet in Japanese. It's based on the English, right? A lot of the sounds, or the words rather, for modern things like internet and a lot of other different things, come from English and are changed into, I think it's the katakana characters that are used for that. And it sounds kind of like that. And so you could say, oh, no, that's wrong. No, that's not wrong. That's just how Japanese people say it. So if you're going to be communicating with Japanese speakers, then you need to know those pronunciations. It's all based on the context and the situation. And I know I've talked too much about this, but that's the basic idea. First, ask yourself, who are you going to communicate with? And that should answer your question for you. All right, guys. Well, good question. If you haven't already, make sure you hit the like button. That would be awesome. Don't forget to subscribe. Check out my full English courses in the links in the description. Awesome one. Englishized. Did I make that word up? No, I'm sure that's probably a word. Kowtow would be a good example. It's Ma says kowtow. Perfect. Although kowtow is very similar to the Chinese pronunciation. That would be an example where it hasn't really changed much. I would love if everyone speaks English like you, so clearly and understandable. It may be because you're an English teacher. I don't know, but I am always happy because I can understand you perfectly. Well, that is good news. I appreciate that, Abner. That is the reality, though. Unfortunately, the bad news is the reason that you understand me well is because there's a bunch of stuff that I'm deciding not to say. Every moment I'm choosing not to say many, many, many things. And that is the reason you understand me. It's not that I'm speaking slower or anything like that. It's not even, I don't think, my pronunciation. It's really just the things I'm choosing not to say. Chinese pronounce kuto. Really? Okay. Are you sure about that? Well, I think it also depends on the dialect of Chinese, right? Wouldn't it be in the South pronounced more that way? Anyway, I'm not an expert. Dude, you're very good at teaching. I first saw a video you made in 2015 about how to learn English with shoes. Yes, that was a video that I filmed in my mother-in-law's home when I first started making videos. It was the very beginning, very early days. Glad you liked it. I do understand English, but it is very hard for me to speak. Yeah, that's often the challenge for people. It's a matter of losing your fear, more of what people would imagine about learning languages is personality and your attitude toward the world and toward learning. It's sad how much it's true, but it is true, is that it's not just about your skill level or how hard you study. It is about the way that you approach it. And there's some suggestion that even extroverts learn languages faster because they're out and about communicating and they're not afraid to talk to people. So that's very interesting. It's very interesting. All right. Well, I want to get to my thing. There's a thing I want to talk about, and then I'll get to more questions for sure. All right. So let's talk a little bit about... I need another sip of this. This is great. All right. People say, what's your job? I say, my job is to drink tea live. All right. So I am going to talk a little bit about something, and then I will get back to your questions. I'll hopefully get back to Jenny's question. Could you please tell me how to use advantage and benefit? Yeah, that's a good one. I'll try to get to that. So many people ask me about methods, tips, strategies for learning English, learning languages. And I think they ask me because they know that I've worked with many English learners, and they assume that I can sort of pick out which methods and which strategies work for people and which don't so well. And I think that's right. I think that's true. I think I have been able to see, oh, that this doesn't work for this person, this doesn't work for that person, this works pretty well. Yeah, absolutely. It's a good assumption. Nice assumption. I like it. But just hearing me say it with no backup or support, I get it. What's my authority other than that? Well, I would like to talk a bit about some actual scientific support for different aspects of methods to learn English. I want to talk about what science says about learning languages in general. We don't really need to talk only about English here. We can say learning languages in general. So I have a few things that are sort of support for the idea of language learning and maybe why you should do it and why you should encourage yourself to do it, and a couple of things that can be turned into tips or strategies that you can use for learning languages, or at least you can know what tends to work based on research. So let's take a look at the science of language learning. And I want to start with a little bit of background. And this comes from a study, several studies in fact, one of which actually measured parts of the brain responsible for understanding and creating language. There are different centers in the brain that are responsible for our language abilities. And they actually studied the physical size of these things in the brain and saw them grow for people as they learned more languages. So if you become a bilingual speaker of two languages, or if you become a polyglot and you're able to speak more languages, it actually changes your brain. And learning other languages gives you the ability to learn other things faster. So those same people with that enlarged part of the brain were then able to pick up new skills and learn new things more quickly than those who spoke only one language. And I've heard from many people, now this is not what the paper says, but I've heard from many people who have learned many languages, 3, 4, 5 languages, who have said, yeah, you know what? Every language I learned made the next one even easier. Somehow my brain had developed channels or pathways that the new language that I learned could travel down, and that made it easier. Now, learning language as a baby, younger, definitely easier. But you can still learn as an adult. Many people do, and you can learn to a very high level. Now, what about age? What about how old we get? Does that affect it? Well, there is some evidence to say, yes, the older you get, the harder it is to learn a language. If you're learning from age 0 and you learn 3 languages from age 0, you're very likely, if you have regular exposure to all of those languages, to become fluent, totally fluent, like a native speaker, native in those languages. Babies and little kids are geniuses at learning languages. They soak it up. But adults struggle with it. It gets harder and harder as we grow older. Right? Our brain structures are already kind of set in our language pattern. But that doesn't mean that it's not possible. In fact, many people can reach a very high level of fluency, even if they start learning a language after age 20. And so what that means is there's really nothing that's preventing you. Nothing that's stopping you, no matter what your age is. Nothing built into your brain that prevents you from becoming fluent. And so what some people are beginning to realize is it's not only that babies are better at learning languages and little kids are better at learning languages because their brains are magical. They're kind of magical. They're very plastic and they can bend and learn things, absorb very quickly. But think about the lifestyle and the attitude of a baby. Babies just explore their environment. What's this? What's this? What's this? And point at things and throw things and lick things, right? And also, they're not learning it because they're deciding, we're going to budget 3 hours for learning languages today. They're learning to communicate with everyone around them. It's a necessity. It's one of the highest priorities. Not for them, but it just happens to be the thing that they need to do as they develop. It's the only thing on the menu, really, in terms of serious skills that they're learning. But adults over age 20, we have jobs, we have families, we have tennis practice. I mean, whatever it is that takes up your time. It's not just that your brain is broken and you can't learn because there's just a bunch of rocks in there. It's that your lifestyle is much different than the lifestyle of a baby, and that prevents you from learning. So what the paper I read shows is that while that is a factor, having a baby's brain, you can become, if not 100% native, very fluent in any language that you choose to learn. If you have the right lifestyle habits and you place a high enough priority on it so that you're actually able to budget the time, and if you have the right attitude toward it. Right? If you're not that interested in it or you're kind of interested, the attitude you have toward it, you're really excited and passionate and enthusiastic about it, and you're learning kind of like a baby, you're just absorbing it, then yeah, you can. You can. So it's about your lifestyle, it's about how you spend your time, it's about your personality or your attitude, in addition to the fact that you have to maybe work a little bit harder. So don't give up. There's hope. Just keep that in mind, that it's not over just because you're, 35, 40, 50, 60. If we have an 80-year-old here, it's not too late. If you want to start learning whatever language you want to learn, Esperanto, English, whatever it is, just start. All right, next. There is some clear evidence that at least having one more language in addition to your native language can prevent or delay, and what I saw showed a delay of something like 4 to 6 years of things that happen to your brain as you get older, right? As we get older, we develop brain issues, right? It's a sad thing, but people get Alzheimer's disease, which you start to forget things, get dementia. These are issues in the brain that begin to develop as we age, right? And it showed that those who speak 2 languages, 3 languages, 4 languages have a much lower risk of these brain issues, right? So better memory, better ability to retain things, and keep your mental sharpness as you get older. Now, for many of you watching, you might think, I'm not 80 years old. What do I care? But this is a lifetime thing, right? So over your lifetime, picking up a new language and maybe doing it in a relaxed way, building it into your lifestyle, can actually improve your long-term health, or at least your lifespan, and prevent these illnesses. So I think it's a pretty good case for developing new language skills, and a good case for making it part of your lifestyle rather than this urgent thing that I do every Monday for 30 minutes, right? Maybe instead start reading books in English. Start simple, start with something you can understand, and then get a little bit harder. Build on it. Watch TV shows in English. After you watch with subtitles for a while, remove the subtitles. Start reading English articles online. Start chatting with friends. Get a long-term language learning partner that you can practice talking with. Doesn't mean you have to talk about English. You can talk about other things and practice English as you're talking, right? Build it into your lifestyle and prevent yourself from getting Alzheimer's and dementia. Seems like a pretty good case for learning a language to me. All right. How about a few tips? Let's look at some strategies supported by scientific research that we can use. One study of high school students showed that the students who were focused on learning a particular subject in a foreign language or a language they didn't know were able to learn that language faster and more effectively than the students who were just learning the language directly. So what do I mean by that? So the students, some of them were learning French, learning vocabulary, learning the grammar, all of that. The others were learning about, I believe it was civics, something related to government. They were not learning the language French, but because they were not native French speakers, they had to learn French in order to get the content that they were trying to learn. So they're both learning French. One is just learning French because they have to learn some other thing. What they found was, after they examined both groups, they found that those learning the other thing and learning French through or with the other thing were learning it more effectively. Now that's pretty cool. It's unfortunate for me as an English teacher. That means you guys shouldn't be watching this. You shouldn't watch any of my other videos, right? But I shouldn't be telling you this. But it does make a case for the lifestyle part. Are you interested in UFC? Okay, go listen to the Joe Rogan podcast. Listen to the UFC episodes of the Joe Rogan podcast. Are you interested in business? Okay, go read some books about business. Go read Blue Ocean Strategy or something like that. Read about something. Listen to something you're interested in. Don't just listen to English, right? Don't just listen to things like what you're listening to now. We're talking about English, right? Listen to something that interests you. Read something that interests you. Learn something that interests you. And you're going to learn the English you need, or whatever language you're learning. You're going to learn that by the way, and more effectively. And I think perhaps the most important thing, it's going to keep your energy, your passion, and your enthusiasm up. It's that attitude thing. It's those people who are able to maintain a good attitude toward learning, to not give up, to continue because they like it. I like this. I'm interested in this subject, in this topic. That's what keeps you going. Not, oh, I must learn language. I must learn English for 30 minutes a day. That is you forcing yourself to do something. And those are the things that you're most likely to give up on. Okay? So find something that you're interested in and make that the window into the language. Last one. Flashcards. Now, we have to be careful about this one. But it has been shown that what is called spaced repetition is effective for memorization. What is spaced repetition? Well, it's basically flashcards. It doesn't have to be in the form of flashcards, but cards with a word on it, maybe a definition on the back, maybe it's your language on the back, whatever it is. But it's important that it's done in the right way. Spaced repetition means you see a new word, and then later that word is brought up at a different time. It's not like, oh, let me count 10 cards and that will be the next one. It has to be either more random or spaced in a particular way so that just as you start to forget it, oh, you remember it again. And just as you start to forget it, boop, you remember it again. And if it's done at the right interval, is the word, at the right interval, then you're more likely to remember that word. Now, the problem with this is usage. So I'm all on board with memorizing. That's great. But why are you memorizing words? Do you know how to use them in a sentence? So if your goal is just to remember a bunch of words and know what they mean for when you hear them, all right, that's fine, I guess. But if your goal is to learn words and be able to use them in a context, in a sentence, in a conversation, in a proposal, or whatever, then this might help you recall the word, but it won't help you with the usage part. And the usage part is extremely important. How do you use the word? Can you put it in a whole sentence? Can you use it in a conversation? That is essential, right? So the usage part involves finding words in context, hearing words in a movie, seeing words somewhere at your workplace, or hearing it in a conversation at work. It's about the context and knowing how it's used so that you can start using it. If it's just this isolated word on a flashcard, you're unlikely to be able to use it naturally. Okay, so hopefully this gives you some ideas about how to build an English language learning lifestyle, or if you're learning other languages, how to do that too. And I hope a reason to continue, a reason to work on this. It's not only good for making friends and getting opportunities, if we're talking about especially English, it's also apparently good for your brain and will prevent you from getting Alzheimer's, which is a big bonus. All right, guys. Well, if you have any questions or comments about this, please let me know in the comments. If you haven't already, make sure you hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe so that you can see future videos. Also, if you haven't already, check out my full English courses in the links in the description. They're about English. But I think that they're still effective. They're still effective. All right. Any questions about this? I always get confused with the usage of words. Yes, exactly. Exactly. To study grammar or not to study grammar. That's the question, said Shakespeare. Although I don't think that was quite the quote. It's in the same spirit. I think learning with flashcards is too boring. Hey, I agree with you. I'm on board with that. I think flashcards boring as hell. Morning, Luke. Can we talk about the meaning of knotty problem? Knotty problem, very simple. It's a very complex problem with many nuances and parts and very difficult to untangle. And if you change one thing over here, then it's going to have a bad effect over there. If you change something over here and fix this thing, it's going to cause a problem over there. So it's a knotty problem. Ooh, that's a very knotty problem. Knotty means it's all in a knot, and it's very tough to untangle. Any problem like that, you can call it a knotty problem. Not a naughty problem, a knotty problem. Sergio says, I've got one written in American English. I'm starting to study on it. Ah, okay. Good. Keenan says, hello, Mr. Pretty. Ooh. Hello. Could you review Enjoy English app? What are your opinions as a teacher? Hold on a second. Let me search it. It's called Enjoy English app. I'm going to search it. Enjoy English. Oh, Sorry, I read that wrong. I thought you had a typo there, but you didn't. You were right. It's actually eJoy. eJoy English. Well, yeah, let me download it, and maybe we can do that. Maybe we can do that. What else? If you guys have any other things you want me to look at, I can review them as well. Anki flashcards. So Anki, Sergey, is spaced repetition. That's the point of Anki. Anki spaces the words out at the right intervals so that your retention is higher. And so, this is good for medical students, for example, who have tons of new words, jargon, vocabulary to learn before these big exams that they have to take. So they use Anki to learn all of these medical terms. It's effective. It works. Again, the usage problem, that's there. Absolutely. And the boredom problem, that's another problem. Tell us about phrasal verbs. Wow, that's a very broad question. Phrasal verbs are not easy to learn. How about that? That's what I know about them. What language do you learn? I'm always working on Chinese here and there when I have time. I wish I had more time for it, frankly. Someday I'd like to just take a whole year off of my life and focus on that. That would be awesome. Maybe when I'm 93, I'll do that. That sounds like a good age 93 project. Take a whole year off and master Chinese at age 93. That's what I'm going to do. Can't wait till I'm 93. I wonder if language and culture are two different things. I don't think so. I don't think they're two different things. I think language is an aspect of culture, just like music is an aspect of culture, just like basket weaving is an aspect of culture, and cooking, cuisine, an aspect of culture. Language is an aspect of culture. It's different in one sense. It's different, I think, from other aspects of culture in that it shapes the world. It is, in some ways, the bedrock of human civilization because our entire understanding of ourselves and those around us is language. We wouldn't say, oh, it's society is completely food-based. Right. You could argue that, but I think language is more foundational for human culture than other aspects of culture. Mr. Skarvig is from Germany. Hey. I don't know if you caught my attempt at a German pronunciation of kindergarten, but I'd like to get some feedback on that. How do you speak confidently? That's a good question. It seems basic, but it's an interesting one. Charmaine Herboda says, how to speak confidently. And I think we can say, how do you speak confidently? Or how can I speak confidently? And I'd like to frame this by asking you to think about something in your own life. What do you feel really comfortable doing? Now, for some people, your answer might be, oh, I feel really comfortable driving. Maybe I drive a lot. I just feel really comfortable in my car, driving in traffic. I don't feel really nervous on the road. I don't feel stressed. I just feel very comfortable. If you're an Uber driver or a taxi driver, you probably feel very comfortable driving, right? Maybe you feel very comfortable in your role at your workplace. You know what to do next. You know how to push people if you're maybe in charge of others. You know how to work effectively. And when you're doing that, you feel like, I know what I'm doing. I know how to do what I'm doing. Comfort, ease. Not that your job is easy, but you don't feel the feeling of, what do I do? Right? That feeling of being a first driver or having your first day on the job. You see where I'm going with this? No matter what it is, we gain confidence as we gain comfort. As comfort goes up, confidence goes up. And when I say comfort here, I'm not talking about like, Oh, so easy. Oh, so, yeah. No, I'm talking about comfort as in I don't feel like I have no idea what I'm doing and no idea what's going on. I don't have anxiety about it in the way that you would if it's your first day on the road after you get your driver's license, in the way that you might if it's your second or first day on the job. After you do it a lot, you gain a feeling of comfort with it. Not that it's easy, but you just start to gain this comfort with doing this thing, whatever it is, for sports, for activities, for things related to work, things we do every day, right? Cooking, it could be for cooking. Okay. As you cook more, you start, you know what? It would be good if I put the brown mustard in that. Yeah, that would be a good idea. You start to sort of get a feeling for it, right? And you know these two things will go together. I don't even need to try it. I just know that these two things will go together because you have so much experience putting different ingredients together. What I'm trying to get at is it's no different for anything related to language. Learning English is exactly the same. Learning any other language is exactly the same. Now, it requires knowledge. But the knowledge is more the background material that then you need to apply. It's like you read a cookbook or you go to cooking school or you go to driver training and learn about the rules of the road, or you read the employee handbook and go through some training modules at work. This is all the background stuff. So the words and phrases, how to put sentences together, the grammar, right? Reading things and watching movies and getting exposure to the language. This is all the background stuff. But if you expect that to automatically make you a very confident English language speaker, you must be insane. That's crazy. Because you wouldn't expect that of yourself at your first day at work or your first day driving a car. You wouldn't say, oh, I've read the rules of the road. I will now be a confident driver. Let's go. Right? That's not going to happen. You're going to feel a little cautious, like, oh God, how do I get onto a highway? I recently rented a car and I felt a little nervous because I hadn't driven a car in a year and a half. I felt a little nervous. I know how to drive, but I felt nervous because I hadn't driven in so long, out of practice. So the point of this is, if you don't apply what you know, if you aren't using English all the time, you cannot expect yourself to be confident. And so to ask the question, why am I not confident? If you can also say, man, I don't practice that much, is like saying, why am I not confident at the first day of work? Why am I not confident my first day on the road? It's the same question. You're not confident because you haven't done it enough. If you communicate often, regularly, maybe every day in English, if you are constantly practicing speaking or writing, doesn't even have to be with other people. That helps. Obviously, if you have a partner, even if it's someone who is also learning the language, you have someone you can talk to and you have regular conversations, right? Or you have the opportunity to talk to native English speakers on a regular basis. Maybe you can make friends or join a discussion group and you can practice communicating. The more you do that stuff, the output stuff, the more comfortable you're going to feel expressing yourself. The more comfortable you start to feel, hey, you know what, I can say things, I can try, even if you look silly, right? That's another part of it. You can't be afraid to look silly. You can't be afraid of what people will think. Oh, I hope they don't think I'm stupid. Don't worry. Most people are thinking about themselves all the time, okay? I know I do. Afraid. Nobody cares about how silly you look. They might think about it for 2 seconds and then they forget about it and they go back to thinking about themselves. Don't worry about what other people think. Just try. And the more you try, the more you do it, the more comfortable you're going to get. The more comfortable you get, the more confident you're going to feel. And the weird thing is, the more confidence someone gains in something, the better they do it. Not because they've learned more, but because the stuff they've learned is now able to flow through them. It's almost like nervousness and a lack of confidence block what's already back there. All of that stuff that you've learned for many years in school, all the books you've read, everything you've learned is being blocked because of this filter, what do I say? This nervousness filter. I wanted to say filtration, and then I changed and whatever. This filter of nervousness is preventing it. So as you gain comfort and confidence, it's going to flow through you. You're going to find, oh yeah, that word I learned a long time ago just sort of popped out of my mouth. How magical. How wonderful. That's how it goes. The same goes for doing like live streams. I mean, if you were doing a live stream in front of a bunch of people, how would you feel doing it the first time? Would you feel relaxed, comfortable, confident? I would guess probably not, right? That's one thing that I'm just getting used to. I've been doing it for a long time. When I first did my very first live stream, I was so nervous. I made so many mistakes. I was so scared. Just sort of keep doing it, gain confidence. That's how it goes. So hopefully that helps. I hope it answers your question, Charmaine. If you guys haven't already, make sure you hit the like button or the thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe and also check out my full courses in the links in the description. Okay. Good question, Charmaine. I like it. Sorry for the long answer, guys. English teachers like to divide words on passive and active vocabulary. Some of them do. Some of them do. We in Germany also use words that nobody else uses. Yeah. There's a clip. I learned that from a show in England called QI. And Stephen Fry has a very funny impression of saying handy. Where's mein Handy? Where's mein Handy? It's a German impression. It's hilarious. I encourage you to check out that clip. I like the term handy. It's so cute. If you guys don't know what Mr. Skarvig is talking about, he's saying in Germany, instead of saying mobile or mobile, cell phone, smartphone, phone, they use handy, which is awesome. I think it's so cool. I really want to learn German someday. Maybe when I'm 94. That's what I'm going to do when I'm 94. I'm going to learn German. That's the plan, guys. That's my plan. Master German at age 94. Have you ever had the intention to learn Arabic? I haven't yet, but you never know. You never know. Alex I'm not even going to try it. I'll butcher it. Hello, Luke. What's your job? What do you do? I mean, you're looking at my job. This is my job. Well, it's part of my job. I mean, I'll let you guys answer the question for yourselves about why do live streams, right? Could it be partly to promote courses? Partly, yes, that's true. I have to be honest about that. But I do enjoy doing it, right? So making English language learning content is my job. I make courses. You can check those out if you like. You can search me online if you like. So I make English language learning courses, and I also work for a company based in Beijing as well, doing something else. So I kind of have two jobs. By the book or by crook? By hook or by crook? Oh, so uncommon. I don't even know if it's necessary. I feel like talking about that is encouraging people to use it, but I've never actually heard it used by anyone. I know it, but I've never actually heard anyone use it. I just used the search in the Discord group name English 3K users online now. Oh yeah, okay. So you're saying that there's an English language learning Discord. That's cool. I might start a Discord eventually. You guys think I should start a Discord? That might be cool. I mean, I use it for other things, but I haven't started an English language learning Discord, and that seems like it might be a pretty good idea. I I feel like I'm missing a question that was out there. Sergio says, my best interest in learning English is the Bible. Now, that's great. That's great. The problem is when you're learning... Okay, so don't stop. Just keep doing that. Absolutely 100%. I don't want to say don't do it. But unless you're reading a very modern version of sort of modern spoken English written Bible, you're going to get not very modern sounding English. Like the King James Bible is extremely outdated English. It's not how English sounds. I have an itch on my nose. Promise, guys, I'm not picking my nose. That's an itch right there. I have an itch on my nose. I'll let you know if I'm actually gonna pick my nose in a live stream. I'll for sure let you guys know. Best way to learn language, which I already couldn't, is learn a new language. It's the best paradox I've ever seen. That's funny. But it's true, right? The best way to learn a language is to have already learned another language. Yeah, but yeah, that's right. Great paradox. I like it. Good comment there. Very funny. Very funny. Could you please explain the meaning of a word often used on politics, to double down? Ooh, I like that. Yes. Yes. I think it's from Blackjack, right? Just want to double check my... Yeah. Okay. So Sergio Matos says, could you please explain the meaning of a word often used in politics? It's double down. Now, my understanding is that this comes from, I don't know if you've ever played it, Blackjack. Blackjack is a card game, right? And when you play card games like poker, blackjack, you gamble. You bet money in the hopes that you have the best cards so that you can win more money. Gambling. Okay. Now, in blackjack, doubling down is... I don't know everything about the game, the details. I haven't played it in a very long time. But it's basically when you're able to, with the current cards you have, get another card and add to the bet you've already made. So usually you make your bets before you get the cards, right? You put your money in that you're going to gamble before. But doubling down allows you to, when you have your cards, to add money, double what you've already bet. So if you've bet 20, then you bet 40. So really what you're doing there is in a potentially very dangerous situation, because if you go over 21, you lose, right? In a potentially dangerous situation, you take a big risk. Now, it could be used that way in spoken English. We're talking about politics here. What people usually mean when they say to double down on something is, and it could be related to risk, when someone has done something, or often especially said something, that is being criticized, and then people say, oh, you said that thing, you should apologize, never say it again. And instead of saying, I'm sorry, everyone, I shouldn't have said it, please forgive me. Instead of doing that, you say, no, that is what I meant. And furthermore, and then you add on top of that another controversial thing that may be related to the thing you said before. So that's the reason you hear it in politics. Some very outspoken politicians will double down on controversial opinions that people want them to apologize for. Now, that could be good or it could be bad. Maybe you're brave and people have criticized you for your beliefs. You've said something about what you believe. And then instead of apologizing for it, you say, and I also think this, right? Not only do I think that, what would be a good example? Oh, how about this, right? I think that healthcare should be universal for everybody. Okay? Now, in many countries it is. In the United States, it's not. You have to have insurance through your company. It's very expensive. So if I were a politician, I would say, I believe that healthcare should be available to everyone for free. Public healthcare. And someone says, what about the cost? You're so unreasonable. What about how expensive it is? And I say, well, not only do I think what I said before, I also think that private hospitals should be shut down and private insurance should not be allowed. Now, I'm not saying that's my real opinion, but just for example. So I go even farther and add something to it. I confirm my previous opinion. I don't change what I said. And I've now added something to it. Right? Or maybe it's something closely related. Like, not only do I think that, I also think that the money should come from the military. Look how much money we spend on tanks and guns and airplanes. Not only do I think we should have free universal health care, that is my real opinion, by the way, I also think that we should take that money from the military. The money that we're spending on the military, spend it on health care. That would be an example of doubling down. Okay? So that's maybe the political context. Could it be used for negative things? More negative? Yeah, sure. It just means you added to that. And usually it's after people have criticized you or told you not to say something. Or sometimes do something. You could talk about actions as well, right? And usually people have a strong personality when they say that and can ignore criticism. That's usually how it's used. Sergio, good question. Thank you very much for asking. Guys, if you haven't already, make sure you hit the like button. Don't forget to check out my courses in the links in the description. And also, if you want to see future videos, subscribe. Subscribe. Okay. Good question. Good question. May you tell me the meaning of to take something on my stride? Oh, okay. We'd say take something in stride. That's a good one. GB Plus says, hello. I would like to express my gratitude for what you do here on your channel. Hey, thanks, GB Plus. Excuse me. Sorry for that. I would like to express my gratitude, and I hope one day it will be possible to have a one-on-one English lesson with you. Well, how about this, GB Plus? I don't really do one-to-one English lessons. But if you come to New York, I will be happy to treat you to a cup of coffee. How does that sound? Does that sound good? Come to New York, have a coffee. Jeet says, I sometimes get confused among idioms, phrases, and proverbs. Could you please help me out? I kind of answered that one. I don't know if it was you who asked that one, but very recently answered that exact question. Proverbs are older sayings that have a deep meaning, that have some lesson for life in them, you know. And an idiom and a phrase are very similar, just a set of words that have a particular meaning. Idiom, you can't usually tell what it means from looking at the words, whereas a phrase, just any words that are commonly put together is a phrase. Could be two words. Mi Chen, New York. Yes, that's right. I live in New York. GB Plus, that's an offer. I will buy you a coffee if you come to New York. If you don't drink coffee, ooh, I'll drink both. I'll drink two. You can watch me. Did I miss a question? I feel like I'm missing something. Oh, yeah, where is that? Where's that question? You stream this on multiple platforms? Yes, MC Zemir. Yes. YouTube is the main one. Facebook, Twitch, and Periscope. Although I don't know if anyone watches on Periscope. I mean, I guess. I saw somebody. I who knows? Who knows? Okay. Mohammed, I hope you don't mind if I change this a little bit. I just want to kind of fix it. Can you tell me the meaning of to take something in stride? And tell me what stride means. Can you okay. All right, let's go with this. Mohammed says, and I have edited this a bit to make it more clear, can you tell me the meaning of to take something in stride and explain what stride means? So yes, I believe I can. The simple meaning of this is when you face a difficulty, a setback, a major disaster in your life, a disappointment, pain, awful news. It's a negative thing, not a positive thing. Some big negative thing. You don't let it trip you up. Now, if something trips you up, it makes you stumble and fall. Right? So if something makes you stumble and fall in life, what does that mean? Maybe you become depressed. Maybe you quit my job. Maybe things happen in your life that are bad because of this bad thing. So a bad thing happens and it causes you to have some emotional problems, psychological problems, life problems. It causes you to do something irrational. It causes you to have other problems caused by the problem that originally happened, or the negative thing that happened, the bad thing that happened, the sad thing that happened, the disaster that happened, right? So let's say we're talking about, and let's just make this very general, right? A diagnosis of a disease. Let's invent a disease. Let's go with let's say there's a disease called live stream EO itchy nose itis. I'll just do ITIS. Okay. Live stream EO itchy nose itis. Seems like earlier today I had kind of a itchy nose in a live stream. Okay. So I make up a disease because it makes it easier. Okay, so there's this disease that people get. And I go to the hospital, I find out I have it. The doctor tells me. Now, what's the possible outcome of this? When I find out I have it, I could go, oh no, I have this disease, and it causes me great anxiety and anguish and problems in my life. Right? I stop hanging out with my friends. I become emotionally upset about everything, right? So I have not taken this in stride. To take something in stride is to not allow it to affect you negatively, to not be messed up by these things. Maybe it's a financial disaster. Okay, let's say you lose $100,000. You saved $100,000. It took you a long time to save it, right? You save it, and then you lose your identity theft. Something like that happens. Something awful. You lose it. Now, do you say, oh, no, I lost all my money. I'm going to just go live on the street and be depressed for 10 years? No. You take it in stride. Okay, it happened. Let's move forward. Let's see what I can do. Take it in stride. Take it in stride. That's what it means. Now, what is this stride part then? What is the meaning of stride? Well, let's go back to that. Let's go back to that. So, oh, why is it covering part of it? Why is it on? Anyway, whatever. That's fine. How do I make this How do I make this on top? Anyway, whatever. So here, saying stride is about how you walk. One step is a stride. If someone has a long stride, they say we have long steps. You stretch your foot kind of far forward. Short strides, like that. We use stride for horses, striding down the street, a person walking down the street in sort of a confident way. So if you take it in stride, it's like a tomato hits you in the face as you walk down the street, and as the tomato hits you, just kind of, oh, I got hit by a tomato, and keep going, right? But if the tomato hits you in the face and you go, you threw a tomato at me, right? That's not taking it in stride. So hopefully that makes it clear. It's kind of based on the idea of walking and then not being maybe negatively affected, yes, but not allowing that to mess up your whole life is to take something in stride. And it could be simple as feedback, right? Sometimes when people get feedback, well, I thought that the sentences were not clear, you didn't use correct punctuation, and then someone just completely says, all right, I give up. I won't learn English anymore. I quit. I won't do it. Oh, wow. You really did not take that feedback in stride. But if you say, oh, that's interesting. Okay, yeah, I'll work on my punctuation, and I'll change this about how I make sentences. Thank you for the feedback. I appreciate it. So, oh, you really took that in stride. You took it very well, and you're now using it to your advantage. That's generally how it's used. That's how it works. So hopefully, Mohammed, that makes sense. Hopefully that's clear. It's a good question. Guys, if you haven't already, make sure you hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe so that you can see future videos. Also, don't forget to check out my full English courses. If you're serious about improving your English, check those out. That's in the links in the description. Okay. How are you doing? I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. Once more, please, can you give me the meaning of to win against all odds? That means it's very unlikely to happen, but you did it. No one thought it would happen. Nobody thought you would win, but you won. You won. Nobody thought it was going to be possible, right? Against all odds, you were victorious. Wow, amazing. Amazing. Against all odds. Good question. Question. Please tell me how to use the word advantage and benefit. I hope you have a great day. Okay. I'll try to answer that one. Jenny Lee says, I think you probably forgot my question. Oh, no. Please tell me how to use the word advantage and benefit. I hope you have a great day. Thanks, Jenny Lee. I appreciate that. So basically, these have the same meaning, but it depends on how we use them. Imagine a Venn diagram. This is how most words work that are synonyms. They have the same meaning that overlap here, but then there's some space over here where they don't, and some space over here where they don't overlap, and they're used differently, right? So to benefit someone, or a benefit, benefit can be used as a noun or as a verb. This really benefits me. Nice, nice. It benefits me. This program or plan benefits me. I get a lot of benefits from my job. Now, what does that mean? Well, we could mean it in two different ways. One, doing this job gives me many benefits, maybe in my skills and my abilities. But usually when we talk about at my work I have many benefits, we're talking about one kind of benefits, which are the things that you get in your job besides salary. Healthcare, health insurance, maybe a retirement plan, vision, all of this stuff, bonuses once a year. These are benefits that you get, right, besides your salary. So there, we could not use advantages because we use the specific word benefit for those things that you get outside of your salary. But if it's the other thing I meant, I have many benefits working here. I get to know a lot of cool people. I have a great network, professional network because of the job. I am always learning new skills. And my company where I work, we have tons of opportunities to expand our knowledge and attend workshops and even get compensation for going to classes at training schools. Ooh, a lot of great benefits. That's not the benefit. That's not the same benefits that I mean. You can't use advantage for that, but you could use advantage for the training thing, for the good things that you get related to it, right? So there are many advantages to working at this company. So the formal benefits, you get health insurance, you get a subway card, you get vision insurance, you get whatever it is. Don't use advantages for that. It has to be called benefits. That's what it's called. But in the more general abstract sense, we can use advantages or benefits as nouns, right? And they both work, right? There are many benefits to exercising daily. You could say there are many advantages to exercising daily. Both of those work. Both of those work. So they have essentially the same meaning there. Now, benefit is much more common as a verb than advantages as a verb. So while we would use both of them as nouns, verbs, not so much, right? So for example, there's a new policy that changes. That policy really benefited me a lot. Do I say that that policy advantaged me? No. Not really, no. So if it's a verb like that, we're probably going to use benefit. Now, there is a way that we use advantage. To give someone an advantage, this is still a noun, but we wouldn't say to give someone a benefit if we mean it in a certain way, right? So we, in a very general, broad sense, we could say to give someone a benefit, to give someone an advantage means to give them something good, something related to another thing that's good. But if we're talking about one thing being higher than others, others are here and we now are up here, then we should use advantage, not benefit. Let me explain what I mean, okay? Let's say there are two people training for the Olympics, okay? One is sponsored by a company that is willing to invest a lot of money in that person's success. The other has a smaller sponsor, and they're not willing to pay for as much in terms of training. So they have to do a lot of the training on their own time, their own research for what kind of training, diet, all of that stuff. So on one hand, you have a sponsor that's paying millions of dollars to give you the training, the dietitians, all of the knowledge and skills that you need to really get ahead. And the other person is doing half of the work on their own, and that's taking up their time that they could be just training. So while they might have started at zero, the one with a lot of money behind them may actually develop and get better, or maybe more likely to get better and do better in competition than the other person who may be, when they started out, exactly the same, just because they have a thing behind them pushing them. This thing makes this person higher than this person in some way. Why? Well, because they have a lot of money. That is an advantage. You got an advantage. That is your advantage. That is my advantage. So your advantage in this sense is what you have that puts you ahead of others in some way. What gives you the edge? We can also use the edge. What gives you the edge here? And we talk about our good traits here when we talk about advantages. One of my advantages is that I'm able to, whatever it is, right? And that means something that we think we have or are characteristic about ourselves or something that's related to us that gives us the ability to do things perhaps better than other people. And it's not like a ha ha ha, I'm better than you sort of thing. It's more like, yeah, it's just there. It's a thing that makes you better. Now, could it be, I mentioned the money example. Could it be something that's just a raw skill? And it's that thing, that raw thing that they have that's physical even, which gives you an advantage. Yes. Yes, let's say it's those two runners. This runner has longer legs than this runner. My longer legs give me an advantage. Michael Phelps, the famous swimmer, He had huge hands and feet. His huge hands and feet gave him an advantage as a competitive swimmer. Other swimmers had smaller hands and feet than him. His giant paddle hands are like, dolphin feet, or he has like, it's basically fins, right? They gave him a huge advantage. That's one of the reasons why he was such a good swimmer. They gave him an advantage. So it could be that sort of trait, characteristic, physical personality, or something external like money, which can give you an advantage. But again, we can't use benefit for that. Gave me a benefit. No. Benefit is just something good. An advantage emphasizes that there's a gap between us and others because of that. We get something more because of that thing. So hopefully that's clear, Jenny. Hopefully that answers your question. It's a good question. It's a common question, I think, that people often wonder about. Guys, if you haven't, make sure you hit the like button. Don't forget to, of course, subscribe so that you can see future videos. And if you're interested in improving your spoken English, becoming more natural, learning to think in English, better pronunciation, better writing, better grammar skills, check out my full courses in the links in the description. Okay, good question, Jenny. Very nice. Sorry it took me so long to answer that. I sincerely apologize. FitzTom66 says, what language are we learning, Chief? Well, Chief, English. To smite is a verb that exists because I encountered it. Yes, smite is definitely not common. Smite is a very rarely used word, for sure. Are you there, dude? No, unfortunately not. I wish I was. How you know what is meant in the conversation? May you explain the meanings of story or stories when you use it in the way that meaning become like lofts or apartments? Oh, we say story like a 5-story building. If we're talking about buildings, a 2-story home, a 3-story apartment building, a 21-story building, a 120-story skyscraper, you could say. If we're looking at something from the outside, then we might say story number hyphen story in front of it. That is a way to talk about basically how many floors. But if we're inside and we're going up the floors, then we say go to the 13th story. No. We say go to the 13th floor. Go to the 13th floor. Interesting question. All right, guys. I think we're going to call it a day for today. Thank you very much for joining. I really appreciate all the great questions. As usual, many good questions. I am planning to come back tomorrow to do another one of these, hopefully a bit earlier. So we'll see how that goes. Again, thanks for watching. Thanks for joining. Thanks for sending the questions. If you guys haven't already, I would really appreciate if you could hit the like button deeply, sincerely. Helps out the channel more than you know. And why not hit the subscribe button as well so that you can see future videos, future live streams. Check out those courses. They're 20% off. 20% off the courses now on the website. So check that out. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks a lot.